Welcome back to the Pro Series Podcast. This is episode 158, and today's guest is another reoccurring guest. You might know him from HGTV, The Ellen DeGeneres Show. His name is John Colaneri. He was on episode 16 of the Pro Series, but it has been probably 3 or 4 years since the last time we talked. So we're catching up, getting updated on his business, being a contractor, kind of where the world is right now with our industry of construction and design. Great episode. But before we get into that episode, please like, subscribe, and review the Pro Series on wherever you listen to podcasts. And now I hope you enjoy episode 158 with John Colaneri. John, thank you so much for hopping back on the Pro Series podcast. Glad to have you back.
Yes, thank you, Eric. Oh, always happy to come back,
Yeah.
have a great conversation, talking with someone else that is in the business. And obviously we can get out to other people in our trades and in our world. It's a great opportunity. So
Oh,
thank
yeah.
you for having me back.
Yeah, I was glad that we were mentioning back and forth on social media again. And I'm like, yeah, we have to have him back on. And I was looking back at our last episode, and it was back in 2021. And it
Okay.
was episode 16. So it wasn't even a podcast yet. It was just like content based stuff. And it's just crazy how much has changed in, 3 years. And that's kind of where I want to pick up from. If the listener right now wants to know more about your backstory, we talked about that in episode 16, but I want to talk about kind of like where we left off in 2021 and talk about commercial and residential, and then also the state of our industry right now. It's
Sure.
very just with everything going on, economy, the election, everything. It just kind of
Yeah.
puts hold on a lot of our projects, and it puts a lot of damper on our business. But I want to start off on where we left off in 2021 and how your business is going.
So, it's funny when you say that because I do remember when we were doing that. I think it was kind of early on in 2021 when we did that. Um, and obviously, pandemic I think was on the forefront, right? That we
Yeah.
were, I mean, we were still in it, maybe tail end, but it came back, went away. So there was a lot of weird moving pieces in the year of 2021. And for me, and I kind of touched on this last time, I I started my construction management and my own design business only in 2019. Since I was working for my cousin's construction company for so many years. Obviously, we had the television shows for that 10-year period. I was coming off of doing the television shows and now really ramping up my own business.
Mm.
So it was still a little choppy at that point in 2021. Like, where am I gonna where is it going to go? Where is it going to end up? What is the balance of my business going to look like? And in 2021 is really when I started to get heavy into the construction management side of the business. Always very heavy in in the residential side and design work. Now, commercial jobs, construction management, is when I started working, doing a lot of work for the Patel Brothers, which is the largest grocery store Indian chain in the country. And I was very early on in starting my projects with them. Fast forward 3 years later, obviously 2024 will be over before you know it, since the summer's
Mhm.
already over.
Yeah, seriously.
Just flying. And I have done so many projects with them to date. In the past 3 years, I've done well over six renovations to stores that are ongoing. We've done an addition on one of their major stores in Islin. We finished the phase one of the Jersey City project. We are
Mm.
now starting phase two, Jersey City, which is building the other half of the building. We have two brand new locations that have just kicked off. One is in Hamilton, New Jersey, which is 27,000 square feet.
Wow.
The other is in Piscataway, New Jersey, which is 31,000 square feet. So a lot of, and those are brand new stores, brand new locations that are going to be coming to the New Jersey area. And I've been dealing with a lot of their other locations going out of state, going up to Connecticut. We have two in Massachusetts that we're going to be doing a renovation. We did a remodel to their Pennsylvania store in Ben Salem. So It's been a lot.
Mhm.
It's been I've learned a ton about the just about the grocery store
Yeah.
business in general, which has been cool. But it's been super busy on the commercial side, and then on the residential side. I mean, really, once things started picking up, because I think 2021, more people really wanted to get those projects going. Obviously, there was a lot of money that flooded into the system. People were still home, working at their houses. So I've done a lot of renovation projects on top of all of my commercial work, whether it's been um, doing an addition onto a client's house where we did a bonus room where it was an office slash playroom area,
Mm.
remodels of master bathrooms, kitchens, attic spaces where people turn their attics that was, a nice attic where you can stand, obviously, still have that 8-foot ceiling, where they added 2 home offices, had a flex room add in there with the bathroom. Um, I've done a lot of different foyers, where people wanted, a larger mudroom area.
Mm.
So kind of you name it, I think I've done it. A new pool
Yeah.
area. I did a new pool for a client. So I've done it's outdoor space. I keep forgetting because I've done a lot of those too, where people want that outdoor kitchen,
Yeah.
covered areas where it is covered. So been super busy, thank God. Knock on wood.
Yeah.
So I've been really happy, and I've seen my business really grow and kind of mature, and I think I'm in a good rhythm and flow for kind of how I run my projects and what I do on a daily basis. And we could definitely touch on this more, but the biggest thing for me is I can see in my business today is being prepared, being a leader, and really being responsible.
Mm.
And that's what I kind of invoke on all my projects, and I really invoke on my subcontractors on top of it, because I'm kind of at the helm, leading them, and if I'm not doing it, then why should they do it? So
Yeah.
uh, that's
How
kind of how.
how is it now being kind of away from the design side of it and kind of just being more on the project manager construction side of it?
I mean, it is very different, but I will say, for example, I still am involved on the design side, because for a lot of the grocery stores, we have these bakery areas where they're an eat in, some are eat in, some are take and go, but um, I'm involved with ownership and picking out all those materials for the front facade, kind of how it looks nice. What are customers going to respond to? What are elements that are going to make it pleasing for them to kind of go into these groceries? Because grocery stores aren't just like a spot, I guess, they used to be just, aisles and food and call it a
Mm.
day. Now they have a lot more design, they have a lot more architecture elements into them. And that's what Patel Brothers is doing. They're kind of revamping, and they've been around since the 1970s, but they're making their current stores more design friendly, and now these new stores are really design focused. Really going to be something that looks more, if going to like a Whole Foods, you see how the Whole Foods
Mm.
does their spots with specific lighting, spotlights, things that direct down onto food. Um, those are things that we're all incorporating now and we're putting into our projects. So it's, I always say it's great that I have the knowledge of both, because design and construction do go hand in hand. And that's something that I always focused on and I always love doing, because, there's a lot of contractors that just say, I don't want to deal with it. I don't
Yep.
want to do design. It's like, you know what? You kind of have to. It's
Hmm.
hard to get away from it. And I think it makes your business better if you do get involved. I'm not saying, I know everybody maybe doesn't have the best eye, but at a certain, I think you need a little element that you have to understand kind of what's going on so you can be there for your clients.
Oh yeah, I think those contractors or project manager that don't get the design side, there's always that conflict that they have with that other designer, and the work relationship isn't good either. I
Yes.
worked with in the retail world, kind of like what you are with the grocery stores, and we definitely had that in some of the PMs, and it makes it for an awkward work environment, but also makes it hard to get the job done and get a job done correctly.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I'm definitely a team atmosphere. I want everybody involved. I want to hear thoughts and, or just, even if someone thinks it's wrong, like say it.
Yeah.
I want to hear those things. I open up your mouth. I don't keep it to yourself. I don't think any question is a stupid question. I think it's like, all right, yeah, I didn't think of that. That's great. It ticked a light bulb in my head. So, um, I think a lot, and I do see it kind of changing because I'll deal with some of the younger project managers for some of the GCs that I'm hiring because obviously I'm the owner's rep and I'm the construction manager, so
Hmm.
I'm hiring these GCs. They have their own supers and project managers. Um, Older school, they don't want to be involved as much on the design side. Newer school, younger, they definitely do.
Yeah.
Which I think is I think is good for the industry. Because they realize that, you know what, I should be involved in this. I should kind of have my head wrapped around all of it, not just one specific area.
Yeah. How hard is it when you're going into these areas that you don't live in, like, and you're traveling to these different areas where the stores are getting built? How hard is it to hire a GC that you really don't know really a lot about? You have to do your own research on. How hard is that?
It is hard. I do a lot of due diligence, whether it's talking to the architects that we're using in specific areas,
Hmm.
going to see their projects, obviously going online, you can see things like that. But it's more, I've always been more of a word of mouth and see it for my own eyes.
Mm.
I mean, we all know what social media is. We all know what the internet is. You can make your projects look like they're the best projects in the world, and then you see it in person, you're like, that doesn't
Mm.
look like that picture.
Nope.
So, so I am definitely, and actually one of our main criteria. So when I go out and I do a bid leveling, so we've again, this has been something the past couple of years that myself and ownership have kind of developed is we have our own bid leveling forms and sheets now that we send out. So because we want apples to apples, and we know everybody, a demo guy might put something that really is carpentry in his demo number, vice versa. So it's hard to say, well, is that number exactly to this number that this guy quoted?
Hmm.
Um, so we have an Excel sheet where it's all there and everything's on it. But I always tell the GCs, I go, look, I'm going to get your numbers. Obviously, we know a price is a price, but we are also going to have an on site interview where you have to bring me your site super, your project manager, and any other high level person that is involved in your team. It could be someone that's in procurement. I don't, it depends on the GC and how and the size of them. I said, I want to know the team, I want to meet the team, and I'm going to talk to them. And we do these meetings, and it's kind of after, let's say we send it out to 4 or 5 people for bid, then we take that and we narrow it down to 2 or 3, and then we do a face-to-face meeting with their higher management team. And we kind of conduct it as an interview. And I asked the supers and I asked them, how do you run your job? How do you do your job meetings? Explain to me. Obviously, one of our in our design in our materials we send out, we say you have to have Procore. It's not something maybe. It's like you must have Procore. It's something you have to have as a tool. Um, so I try to find out their efficiency in Procore because I'm going to be using it. I really don't feel like teaching people. Not saying I know everything, but I want somebody that has an understanding of it. I look at their schedules. I see how they make a Gantt chart. We go through it. If there's certain holes in it that I see, I call it out. I'm not saying that chart. Obviously, they weren't chosen yet, and it's not. I'm not saying it's going to be the end all schedule. But I'll say, hey, look, you put this before this. Explain to me why, and is there a reason for that? Because we normally don't do it like that. So we go through this whole question, and then I sit down with the owner who's with me in that meeting, and it's kind of a gut feeling. We're like, hey, look, this guy answered it this way. We like it. We don't like it. So it is an interview that we are conducting to see if they are the right fit for the job.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it. I've seen, we all hear those horror stories of people just hiring off of Facebook or
Yeah,
hiring off of, Instagram, and it makes no sense to me when they do that because, like you said, there's Photoshop, there's so much stuff you can make, or just a different angle. We've
yeah,
seen it even on
absolutely.
TV. Just
Yep.
angles make anything like that. But I like how you said apple to apples because that's a very, very hard subject to get around to a customer when they're trying to compare multiple bids and
Yes.
how you have that in place and you're able to actually explain to them that because that's the hardest thing, especially with the labor side of it. I feel like comparing apples to apples with labor is the hardest part in our business.
It is. And, I run my residential whenever I do a residential client, very, very transparent and I do things very maybe differently than how other people quote. When it comes to any of the materials and things like that, I show my clients and I tell them, I don't put any, there's no markup I put on any materials. Some people do, and that's part of their deal. I don't do that. I'm like, look, I get discounts at my lumber yards. I get discount at certain design facilities that
Hmm.
I go to. There's certain areas that I can pass on savings. If I can pass it on, I'm passing it on. I want you to pay me for my time in my time only. I'm not going to charge you an extra 5% on materials where, all right, I get a 15% and I want to pick up that 5%. Maybe I only give you 10. Those are games to me. And I honestly, I can't stand that stuff. It really, really irks me. So I am constantly always showing my clients the upfront costs and I'm
Hmm.
explaining to them, guys, this is what it is. This is what it costs. Labor obviously changes, right? Because there's guys that are better than others, and that's why they charge more, and they should be able to charge more.
Yeah.
Um, but when it comes to materials, I'm very upfront. And actually, most of the GCs, even on the commercial side, they do share, and I tell them like, let me see the materials. You shouldn't be charging me a vig on materials, on
Mm.
especially in today's world where we know it's constantly fluctuating up, down, here, there, steel, whether it's wood, stone, I don't care what it is, it constantly changes. And I think it's a much easier way to kind of being transparent on the project.
Oh, definitely. And you bringing up pricing, that's a great segue into the economy now. I mean, I was just with a cabinet shop this morning talking about how tough it is right now. Just mainly because, it's summer. It's usually this time of year it could slow down.
It
Um,
does.
but it's the election year too, so it makes
Yep.
it even worse.
Yeah.
How do you see it going on right now and in your area as well?
So definitely residential side, definitely a slowdown.
Hmm.
And I am in where I am in North Jersey, definitely a little more of an affluent area. People do have more money to spend, but given that fact, definitely not like it was a year or even 2 years ago when it was really pushing.
Oh
People
yeah.
were people were spending money. Even talking to the subs, they're just like, "Hey, do you have work?" I never used to get calls from any of my guys like, "Hey," now I get like, "John, you haven't heard from me?" I'm like, guys, I'm doing other projects. I don't have anything for you right now. It's just not, it's not there. So I can definitely see that slowdown coming.
Mhm.
Now it is summer. It is always a little more slow. I feel it's a little more slower than normal summers. Um, we'll see kind of what's going to come up here in the fall. But I don't think it's going to be a robust season. I just, at least
No.
from the forecasting and what guys are telling me, I don't see that. Um, Commercial side, luckily on the commercial side, my business and the Patel brothers, they are very busy.
I
They
bet.
have a great business and they're pushing stuff out. So I'm going to be very busy on the commercial side. I see more of my time kind of gravitating there than on the residential side.
Mm.
Um, I think like you've kind of seen it. I mean, I just drive around in my neighbor. I mean, no one's selling houses.
No.
I don't know if it's going to break. I don't know when it's going to break. I guess when rates finally start to come down, but I don't know if that's going to be the best thing either, because then it's going to be a mad rush and people are going to jack price homes
Exactly.
up. So, you know, look, I've heard a lot of topics. I've heard a lot of people, both sides of the aisle, trying to make like this is not an easy fix.
No, it's
And
not.
I don't care what side politically you fall on. This problem's pretty deep. Um,
Hmm.
it's going to be deep for, I think, for a couple of years. Um, and and to be quite frank, this goes back even I remember back when we were doing we just started shooting our first season of Kitchen Cousins. We had finished this large development project, 22 units in Jersey City. That was my uncle and cousin's company. I was a project manager working for them. Um, and I remember back then when we had the crash, right? You had the financial crash in 2009, 2010, and then the real estate market, well, from 2010 to 2015, 16, 17, it was really sluggish,
Hmm.
really not much going on. And all you heard over and over and over, I don't care what economist, a show that you turned on that talked about home building and all the big home builders, was there's not enough supply. And that is the bottom line. You could give free money out to people. You could give them help with down payments. You could do whatever you want. But I am telling you, it's supply and demand.
Hmm.
We, unfortunately, in our country right now, do not make enough homes. And that's just a pure fact. I don't care what builder you talk to, they will tell you the same thing over and over and over. And the bottom line is we need to stop the regulation of our business. We need to open it up, get more builders to start building more, really getting more homes on the market. And that's low income homes. That's homes that people can afford, starter homes. We don't just want these large homes. We need affordable housing that first time home buyers can actually afford and buy.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh my God, my first house is going to cost me, five, 600,000. That's not how it used to be. You
Hmm.
used to be able to get a decent home for a starter home for in the twos, $300,000. Um, it's going to be hard. I mean, it just, unfortunately, when you have inflation for the past 4 years, like we have, where, yeah, it's more under control, but what a lot of people don't realize is it's when inflation has risen over those 4 years every year, that's compounding. Just because it comes down below 3%, guess what? It's still 3% higher than last year. But the year before that, it was 5%. The year before that, it was 7%. And the year before that, it was 8, 9%. So realistically, that's 20% higher than where you were. It's just basic math.
Yeah.
So I think I really hope that people allow the building industry to really start producing and letting us do what we can do. And I think if we do that, it's going to help. Is it going to be everything? No, but it'll definitely be a help that we can get more on the market, get more of these homes out to the customers across the entire country.
No, agreed. Yeah, and even before that happens, I feel like we have such a shortage with labor for the construction
Yes.
business. Like,
Yep.
my generation's not going into that side of the business. It's not, they're not
Yep.
going into the actual labor that is the main part of construction. Like, you can't have just the salesperson or the PMs. You need to actually have the people doing the labor, which is the
Correct.
hardest part to find. And it feels like in schools that I think they're getting a little bit better with these tech schools, but I feel like for the most part they're kind of just trying to push them just to go to college when it's not correct for every single
I wish
student.
they, yeah, I wish they did push more. I mean, look, I tell people all the time, and I've done a lot of talks across the country, and especially if I have the opportunity to talk to any young person, I tell them, like, guys, you make incredible money. You
Hmm.
want to make six figures immediately, not, oh, I went to college and then I got a master's, and then after the master's, maybe I did something else, and then 8 years now I'm making that. You will make that right out of the gate. Um, I think like you said, I think it has gotten better because they're people. I think a lot more of the Gen Zers are understanding that, and they're seeing it, right. Social media,
Yeah.
people are pushing it out there more. So I think they're kind of getting that. Um, but you can make great money, and you don't have to wait for it. I mean, that's the thing. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Absolutely. I think when you say Gen Z, I think they care more about their mental health and actually liking their job and liking what they
yes,
do. instead of, hey, my parents want me to go to college, I'm going to go to college because that's what they want me to do. They're like, no, screw you. I want to do what I want to do and I want to make a living off
Yeah.
of being happy. And I think that's a great opportunity for the Gen Zs to do. But yeah, it's a struggle right now. I know in my area, and I'm sure it's in your area too, just trying to find quality people that are wanting to actually be in the business.
Well, and you know what it is too, I think, and I see this a lot, and I that's why before when I was talking about how I kind of run my projects and how I portray myself in my company, to me, leadership is such a big deal.
Hmm.
When you're doing a construction project, anybody that's ever done, I don't care if you've done a little small renovation to a half bath or an update to your house. You don't even have to do a big one. I'm talking just a basic one. You could have 4 or 5 trades come through your house for something very small. And the management of those people, the time, the materials going through that, if you don't have a leader and somebody really kind of running that ship and steering it in a direction, that's when things get off the rails.
Mm.
And I by no means know everything about I've learned a lot and I learned every single day, which is that's why I love construction. I love being on construction sites because no project is alike. There's no building I'm walking into. It's like, oh, that's going to be exactly like this one. It's like, yeah, there's going to be similarities, but you don't know what you're going to find. And that's why you literally learn from every single job. And if you don't have somebody that is willing to kind of put everybody together, and that's me as a construction manager, that's what I do. I tell my clients, I tell the owners I deal with, I am like, I am here to make sure everybody is communicating, everybody's talking, we're staying on schedule, and we're always moving ahead. Are we going to have setbacks? Absolutely. There's no construction project where you just wake up and it's like, oh man, that went off without a hitch. You're going to have weather. You're going to have cities and towns that obviously you have to go through inspections and they get in the way. You're going to have different manufacturers and deliveries that maybe don't come on time or they come defective. And now what do we do? Utility companies that I deal with. Oof, that's a
Oh, I
whole
bet.
nother.
Yeah.
We can go to a podcast just on that I have to deal with. Um, but it's you know when you have all of these people together, if you are not having someone that's going to step up and really hold people accountable, which is that's what I do. I'm not saying it's not like yelling and screaming at people. It's just being a team member with them and saying, guys, we're on the same team here. We all have the same goal. We want to get done with this as fast as possible, the highest quality, and everybody to make money and walk away and go on to the next job because I want to do another one with you. That's my goal. My goal is to do another job with you. I don't want a one and done. I don't
Hmm.
I don't I don't like doing business like that. I want general contractors and subcontractors and suppliers that I can do business for the next 25 to 30 years. We can all retire. We can laugh about it. I'll see you maybe in Florida one day, or I don't know, I'll see you on a beach, and that's it. So that's kind of my mentality is let's lean on each other.
Yeah.
If you feel something's not going right, talk to me. I'll help you out. If I'm not supporting you and I'm not giving you the support you need, tell me. I want that. I want to support you in every way possible. So that's what I think. I think a lot of these projects, that's where they get bogged down. It's too many finger pointing. You have
Hmm.
a lot of personalities, especially with when you get into the larger projects, especially in the commercial side, the professionals are much more involved, especially when you're building a new building and you have a, a structural element that's involved and you're doing steel work or things like that. So, you know, it gets technical and there's big personalities and I'm sorry to say, but a lot of professionals don't like to say I'm wrong or you have to say, well, how can we work together? And sometimes the architect doesn't like to work with the engineer, and then you have the structural engineer, the mechanical engineer, and the site engineer, and do they all like to so you need that that quarterback, that person to kind of hold it all together, call out the play. Sometimes you audible,
Yeah.
sometimes you could get sacked. It happens. But it's how do you get up? And
Yeah.
and and that's the biggest part of it.
Yeah, and then when the people below you, are you working with them to kind of maybe go into your place one day when you retire? I feel like a lot of people, these these leaders or the members or project managers are, they're leading, but they're not teaching below them. Is that
Correct.
something that you kind of take into a main priority?
I always any opportunity either that I can teach or even that I can get taught. I want that.
Yeah,
I I think in any business, any industry, you don't want to have this just even keel, like, all right, well, I don't want to grow. If you don't want to grow, you might as well pack it up and call it a day. It's over. That's
agreed.
that's when you've kind of checked out.
Hmm.
Uh, and I think yourself, me, yeah, we're still in those early years, and we are younger, so yeah, maybe we have some more vibrance, but I really want to push myself, and I want to make sure even when I get into my later years, I have to keep on growing because the industry, it changes too fast. Way too
Yeah,
much technology is just flying. I mean, it's every year it is getting more and more deeper and deeper entrenched in construction.
yeah.
It never was this way before. And if you're not on the technology side of it, as well as the normal building side of it, well, then that's how you get lost in the wash. And I think that's why people do get a little like, I don't want to do that.
Hmm.
I don't want to push myself there. It's like, come on, like it's all right to ask the question. And
Yeah.
that's where I think people just have to, it's like just ask the question and let's all figure it out together.
Yeah. It's funny you bring that up. I was at a cabinet shop this morning and I was teaching the owner how to transfer CAM files to their CNC machines to use the product that I
Yeah.
sell. And there's so many shops I stop in and they do not want anything to do with this technology. But their jobs are behind and
Yep.
they're not pumping out as much and they lose some customers and because they're just not adapting to times. And I have another podcast. It's called Off Topic, and I talk about country music, but I also talk about how rock music kind of went downhill after the 80s, early
100%
90s
agree, man.
because it hasn't adapted. It hasn't
You don't get
changed.
you don't get any more Metallica, Guns and
Yeah.
like bands that rocked. It's just you're like those classic nothing like
No,
that.
because
Yeah.
no one's willing to reinvent it or just change. There's a couple bands that try to imitate, but that sounds not what's today.
Yeah. It's
You
not
can't do
it's
it.
because they're not authentic.
Yeah.
Look, we all say it, right? In your social media, everyone's like, no, be real authentic. Don't be kind of fake authentic where
Yeah.
you try to make like you're being no. I want I want reality. I want the true you. I tell people all the time, what you see is what you get. Whether you could see me, on my social media, you meet me in person. This is who I am. I don't
Hmm.
try to fake it for anybody. Because if you fake it, you're just not going to make it. I don't care.
Yeah.
It's you will get called out. Eventually, you're going to get called out. People are going to know this is not the real deal. Um, and and look, I deal with a lot of the millwork guys too. Some are old school and they, it's the hand drawings and it's which it's fine. Like I know some of those old school guys because it's hard. Even some like millwork is a very hard industry to find people. It's just
Oh yeah.
not vibrant. It's just
No.
it's dying off. Um, so but you're right. If you can get those people to start adapting to some of the technology side of it, and especially to some of the AI stuff that's coming out and the future that's really going to be hitting us, I think in the next 5 years. Um, it's going to create a better work environment, and it's hopefully really it creates more work for all of us.
Yeah.
It allows us to do more jobs. So that's
Yeah.
kind of what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, and you mentioned AI. We were kind of talking before the camera that you use some like an AI transcriptor, which is awesome
Yep.
and so smart. And it's a good side of AI, but there's so much bad side of AI. I see it on social media now.
Yep.
People, it looks like a kitchen they just did, but it was created by AI. And
Yep.
it's or those apps. I don't know if you've seen them. You take a picture of the room and it designs the room for you.
No, I haven't even seen that yet. No.
Yeah, they
Okay.
have those, and they're getting to the point where they'll tell you what products to buy to put into the room. So it's really just taken away that whole side of the business, which is a scary, scary thing to think
Wow.
about.
Yep. I mean, look, I think like anything, AI is coming on fast. I mean, it's all you hear, AI, AI, it's at the forefront of every news cycle and people are talking about it nonstop. Um, we'll see what it comes about. Like really to me, like any new tech, right? How is it going to make my life easier?
Hmm.
Same when iPhones were introduced. I remember getting my first iPhone in 2007, man. I was all geeked out and I was like, what's it gonna do? It's now I can't even imagine my world without having an iPhone, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't even make sense. And it did barely anything compared to what it does now.
Yeah.
It's just like it had some apps. And the pictures were crappy and just a mess anyway, so um but now, fast forward 10, 11 years later, yeah, it's just
It's like a,
it's totally different.
oh yeah.
Um, using the AI that I have when I do my Zoom meetings or my Google Meets, or the Microsoft Teams, it keeps notes for me. It's good. I have a lot of professionals. There could be five, six of us on one of these meetings, and I just can't keep track of it. And I'm like, oh, did
No.
that person say that? So it is a cool tool, and I like it. I use Otter, Otter AI. It's after the meeting's over, probably 20 minutes later, I get a summation of it. It gives me the highlights. It gives me a summary. Sometimes I if it was an important meeting, like I just had an important one with an environmental company because we have to excavate, take some dirt out. Um, and it's a lot of money to do this. So I shared the ownership couldn't be on it with me. I shared that meeting and the meeting notes with them so they can read it. It's obviously I tell them, but they can really see right there. You can click on a specific clip if you wanted to see the clip or hear the clip. So you can do that also.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's pretty cool, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I can only say so. I might forget something. I'm
Yeah.
human, AI. So this gives them that little extra uh tool. Um, but I'm interested in, and I'm I really want to see how is it going to affect, how is it really going to be applied even in field. And I've seen the
Mm.
crazy stuff where you're going to be able to take your laptop or your tablet or whatever, bring it on site, literally pan up onto, let's say my steel is erected, and I could be there with the plumber, the electrician, HVAC, and literally all my mechanicals start feeding in, and you'll see it right there, and you'll see conflicts before they arise.
Wow.
So so obviously you can make those plans, and those plans are very expensive to see where things intersect.
Hmm.
We don't do that on our jobs because I mean, a lot of the high rises do that type of work because you have so many stories. But on for any of our stores, we haven't done that yet. It's pricey. It's a lot of money. But this is supposedly it's something that's going to be commonplace where you can see it right there. It's like
That's
that
insane.
stuff to me is pretty wild. Like
Yeah.
that's nuts.
Yeah, and that's not really taking away someone's job
No.
in a way because like the one I mentioned, it's taken away an interior decorator's job, or
Yeah.
in a way that was actually adding cabinets to the wall. You're taking the kitchen designer's job away. That's
Yeah.
something that's actually useful and like could save millions of dollars on projects,
Sure.
and construction time and all that stuff. It's actually something that's actually going to help, which is
Yeah,
huge.
no, it is. And that's why I said like we just don't know yet.
Yeah.
I think in the next 2 to 4 years, it's going to be more implemented. I think before I was telling you, like, our projects on the commercial side has to be Procore. Like we are fully. It's just when the project is over, ownership has that blueprint. They can go back if they do a renovation. They can get submittals. They can get any of the warranties. They can get the old plans. It's all there in Procore. So that is a prereq that we always tell our GCs you have to be using that. I mean, most people at this point are,
Yeah.
and all the professionals are using it too. So just makes the submittals RFIs very super easy. If you need an answer, boom, it's right there. I think those programs, how are they going to be integrated into AI? Like, what's going to happen with those? Because I can only see them getting much more robust.
Oh yeah.
They're gonna really start doing things that are, extra features and extra things that are definitely going to add to the projects.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. And in 2 to 3 years, when you come back on, we'll talk about where we're at then. It's kind of funny
That's it.
how we'll talk about then. But I want to end with where people could follow you and follow you along in your journey.
So yeah, so I mean, people can always go on to my website, www johncolaneri.com. They can always most of my stuff I do on Instagram, so it's at Colaneri John. That's really where I post most of my stuff. I don't have TikTok. I just don't have time for another social media platform.
Feel you.
I just, it's I stick to one. A little bit of, I do Facebook here and there, but it's primarily Instagram, and that's where if you want to see my projects, what I'm working on, and some of my personal life, like I said, it's what you see is what you get. That's kind of how I am. So
Yeah, awesome. Well, John, thank you again for hopping back on. Glad to we can make this work and have you back on the podcast. And hopefully, whenever you want to come back on, just let me know.
sounds good, man.
Awesome.